Hola, and welcome to this week's session. We are going to make sure that you never create content accidentally or without a purpose ever again. We're going to go through my framework for creating messaging that actually converts. And the reason I want to go through this is because the reality, the sad reality is that most creators and most content creators and most people that are marketing themselves don't make much money. One number I actually looked up recently, the average self-employed person in the United States earns about $84,000 a year. The top 90th percentile of self-employed people in the US earn about $148,000 a year. And that's not bad money, but it's not why you went into business for yourself, right? It's not what you expect to make when you're selling your expertise, when you go out on your own, when you start building your business. But one of the reasons that this happens is because most people don't know how to market themselves or their business properly. And that comes down to knowing how to create messages that convert so that all of your messaging in your social media content, on your landing page, on your websites, everywhere, in your bio, in the experience of your LinkedIn section, whatever it is, all of it should be created with the intention of moving your prospect through the journey that they need to go through to become a client. Now, it's really easy to get stuck following people's advice to just post social media, just give things away and it'll come back, just add value, right? And so you start giving, creating content, hammering out LinkedIn posts, hammering out YouTube videos, whipping up landing pages, and all you hear are crickets. Or you put up websites and you're the person that visits the website most often, right? I've been there, by the way. Worse is sometimes you create content, you're getting feedback, people are engaging with it, they're liking with, they're commenting, you've got some views and some reach on content, but you're not making any sales. As we say in the marketing world here is claps ain't cash, right? So as a service provider, your goal with your content is to do one of four things. The first is you want to create awareness from prospects. There's different stages of awareness, but you want to create awareness of the problems that they have. Some people aren't even aware that they have a problem. So you want to create awareness of the problem. You want to create awareness of the solutions. There are multiple solutions to whatever problem your prospective client has. One of those solutions may be a competitor's offer. One of those solutions may be a completely different type of service. Okay. So problems, solutions, and then specifically your product or your service within that solution set. Okay. So you want to create awareness. That's goal one. Second thing is you want to create interest. Once you've created awareness and you're now on the map and maybe you have some of their attention, you actually want to create some interest in what you do from prospects. Then third, you want to help them make a decision. Okay. So they're interested. Now you want to help them make the decision to actually buy your product or buy your service. And then the fourth thing is once they've made that decision, you want to challenge them to take action. So again, those four things: awareness, interest, decision, action. Now this is the AIDA model. It's a classic marketing framework that's, kind of old school. And it just basically simplifies the process that people go through when they find out about you, when they start to want your stuff, when they make a decision to buy it, when they actually buy it. Right. And there's some different versions of it. Some people replace attention with awareness. Some people replace decision with desire. But you get the point. The thing about this is it's not always perfectly linear, right? Like it's not always one step and then two steps and then three steps, but you get the gist when you look at it. Most of your prospects are somewhere on this continuum, somewhere on this journey. And at different stages, they're thinking different things. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to break this model down into more detail, and I'm going to make it really actionable for you because I want to make sure that you never create a random piece of content for anything that you do in marketing ever again, right? Again, on social media, in your newsletters, on your podcasts, on your website, on landing pages, whatever it is. All of them should be intentional. And what we're going to go through today is going to help you do that. Right now, to do that, we're going to use what I call the pain to purchase framework. And in that framework, I break down those four stages, like the awareness, the interest, decision, action. I break those into like very specific scenarios. There's 10 in all. And we're going to look at the most common scenarios with a typical journey of going from, we say, from suspect to prospect to actual client. Okay. I'm going to share each one of those 10 stages, and then I'm going to explain the difference. All right. Now, for each of those stages, we're actually going to look at the first thing is the client's perspective, right? This is the core part of marketing. This is the fundamental thing that you really want to lock in is understanding the client's perspective. You've got to pause, take a step back, and objectively look at where they are in this journey and how are they seeing things from their perspective. You don't want to fall into what many, many experts do, which is the curse of knowledge, which is basically once you know something and once you become an expert at something, it becomes very difficult for you to remember what it was like to not know. And so a lot of times as marketers, we're talking from our perspective and what we think they're thinking, but we forget to actually just take a step back, really think about that situation and objectively say, what is their perspective? Okay. If you can't do that, your marketing is going to suck, right? The people that market the best understand this concept the best. This is why, like, sadly, the smartest consultant or the best business coach or the best service provider doesn't always build the most successful business because no one knows how good you are until after they hire you, typically. Right? Up to that point, you're only as good as your marketing. Your marketing is only as good as your messaging, and your messaging is only as good as your ability to understand things from your prospects and your client's standpoint, right? So we want to get in their head as much as possible. This is a really important part of this process, and we're going to break that down for every stage. Then the second thing we're going to look at is the goal of the content at that stage, right? This is taking what you've discovered, what you've learned, or what you've thought about in the initial part of this, when you think about your client's perspective. Now, what's the goal of your content? What is the point? What is the purpose? What is the reason that I'm making this piece of content? You don't want random acts of marketing out there. You want intentional content doing its job. So we're going to dive into what is the point of this content, given where this audience is in this journey, right? And the third thing, a messaging example. So I'll share some high level examples. In other words, at this stage, these are a couple of things that you could say. And this is really just to get you thinking, what kind of messaging should I be using to people at this stage in the journey that have this going through their mind when my goal of the content is whatever it is, right? So I'll just give a couple of examples there, high level, just to get the creative juices flowing. And then we'll look at content types. And I will give you some types of content that you can use for different stages. Now, I do reference in this part, I reference like what part of the funnel you're usually looking at. This isn't a clean break. Like there's not always, this is always top of funnel. This is always middle of funnel. This is always bottom of funnel. There's a lot of gray area in here, kind of like the client journey. It's not linear. It's not perfect, but you'll get the gist. And I know that we haven't gone into detail on the funnel building yet. It's fine. You'll generally get it high level, top of funnel is getting people into your marketing ecosystem with a lead magnet, something like that. Middle of funnel is that's going to nurture them, build the relationship, build trust, things like that. Bottom of funnel is going to get them to your sales process. We'll break that down a little bit here. And then when we get into funnel building, we'll dive a lot deeper into that. Okay. Now this one, it's going to take a minute to go through all of this because there are 10 stages, but we're going to break this entire framework down. And at the end, there's a short exercise to help you hone in on your top 3 targets within this and get intentional about how you're going to message things to that particular audience. So without further ado, let's jump into the framework and the exercise now.